Hi, everybody. This is Angus Jennings. I'm the town manager here in West Newbury. I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season. It's a different year than we're used to, for sure, and a lot of challenges and a lot of tough decisions as we look ahead to time that otherwise would be with friends and family, and now needing to be satisfied with remote interaction and so forth. But the good news is help is on the way. The town has a vaccine working group led by our health agent and involving myself, our fire chief, EMA director, members of the Board of Health, our public health nurse, volunteers, and more people will be involved with that effort as we go forward. But the good news is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be a somewhat long tunnel. It's not going to happen overnight, but there is a lot of reason to believe that 2021 will be a much better year than what we've lived through this past year. So I hope with all of that said that people are happy and healthy and that you stay that way and that you enjoy the holiday season. And we be thankful for all that we do have to be thankful for. So this is the second of a series of informal updates on what's going on here in town. And for those of you who watched the last one, you know that we're happy to have suggestions on what types of topics people would like to hear covered. But for now, what I wanted to do is talk a bit about a meeting that we had about a week and a half ago. We had a goal setting meeting, which was really terrific. We brought together boards, commissions, committees, and staff across the entire community. And it was the first time we'd done something like that. There was a nice write-up of it in the paper, and you may have seen that. There was a lot of ground that was covered, and I don't want to go into all of the details of all of the various initiatives, both that are underway and that are on the horizon. But needless to say, there's quite a lot going on, and with a community like we have, it's very important that we work together and work together toward common goals and common priorities so that we can get things done and move on to future priorities. We have quite a long list. So, but there's a lot to be happy about with what's gotten done and with what's getting done. And the meeting recently was a terrific opportunity both for the Board of Selectmen and myself to hear from people in the community about what they're working on and what they hope to get done in the next year or two, but also for everybody to hear from one another. And there's a lot of there were a lot of interesting synergies that had already been underway, but I think that meeting can be a catalyst for more collaboration and more visibility among the organization of what the different projects and initiatives that we're working toward. So I do want to speak to just a couple of the items that are high priorities looking ahead and that are going to involve a lot of coordination and cooperation across the organization. We'll be working to update our personnel policies. Those have not been looked at in a serious way for a few years, and that's something that's going to obviously be a major effort involving all staff and appointing authorities. So that's something that's going to take some time. We are recently signed a contract for the restoration of the Soldiers and Sailors building. And so that the architects at work, and that work is going to proceed over the winter. And we'll have public updates on that and public meetings. And the question remains of future use or uses of the building. And there are a lot of good ideas out there. So we'll be working towards some decisions on that so that that can guide the work of the designers to make sure that the design is suitable for the end uses of the building. But that's a major project. We're also very close to bringing online a couple of major capital improvements in the water arena with the Break Hill water tank and also the chemical treatment building that's been under construction out at the reservoir. So those are two very significant capital upgrades of the water department. We have, well, we have a lot of other projects. So what I'm going to do is shift gears a bit. Just the other night, the selectmen set their goals for the FY22 budget season. So I wanted to summarize those so that people can know what to look for. We are going to be setting up a dedicated page on the town website for the budget process. We don't have that up yet, but we will set that up over the holidays. And so that should be up by the first of the year. And that'll be a good way for those of you who are watching from home or who might want to follow along the budget process as it goes from the initial budget preparation by department heads and boards, commissions, and committees. They submit their proposed budgets to my office. I work with the town accountant and finance department to put that together into an overall budget presentation that meets the goals that are set by the selectmen at the beginning of the process. And then once I present my budget, then it begins the process of formal review by the finance committee and the Board of Selectmen over a series of meetings in the late winter. And once everybody's hopefully in agreement, that's the budget that appears on the town meeting warrant and goes to the voters in April. So while town meeting is the formal vote of the people, there's lots of opportunities to engage with the process. Most of what I've just described takes place in public meetings. So if people are interested in how your government works, how things are funded, why they're funded that way, there's a tremendous amount of detail included in the budget documents and the backup. It's all public, and we're very open book with all of that. So it's a great opportunity to both advocate your point of view on what you think the town should or should not be prioritizing, but also to learn more about how your tax dollars are put to use to both do what we need to do, as well as to advance some of the priorities that aren't necessarily required, but are very important. And that's always a balancing act. So the budget goals that the selectmen set, their first one was to limit the budget increase other than the schools, which is a separate process that's largely outside of our control, to limit the non-school budget increase to no more than 1.5%. With the new school coming online, that is certainly affecting the current year's tax rate, and that's going to continue to affect taxes next year and going forward. And the selectmen and my office, and certainly the finance committee as well, are very sensitive to the impact that it has. And so we want to do everything we can to constrain any additional growth and cost beyond that. There are some major expenses, as there are every year, that are largely outside the town's control. And so some amount of increase typically does happen, but the selectmen have set a cap of 1.5% other than the schools. We will be committed to a clear, transparent budget process. With the COVID, some of these public meetings will continue to be remote, but with the website or the web page that we'll set up, we'll continue, just as we have done in the past, post information to that on a regular basis so that people can follow along with the process and how the budget always changes from where the initial proposal as it works through the process and gets toward the form that will be presented to town meeting. The one thing that will continue this next budget year, just as it did the current year, is the school stabilization fund. The selectmen will continue to recommend placing expired debt service or funds that a number of years ago were budgeted for active projects, to put that money into the school stabilization fund so that we continue to build up a piggy bank to draw from as we pay the debt service now that the school is coming online. So in addition to continuing to continue to put funds into that account, we will in next fiscal year continue to recommend to draw down some funds based on a multi-year plan to make the best use of those funds to offset the impact on the property taxpayer for as long as we can. We have made a tremendous amount of progress in the last year and a half in our capital planning. And capital project is anything that costs more than $20,000 and has a useful life of 5 years or more. So that could be anything from a vehicle replacement with the public works or fire departments, for example, or that could be a major improvement over at the Page School or the Middle Street Bridge, or something like the water tank. So we've made great strides in putting together a capital program that is lengthy, but it's very clear. It's very readable. It's got a lot of backup. It's got all of the underlying assumptions on costs and need and when things are programmed. It's a 10-year plan. So there's quite a lot in there, but if people are interested to dig into that, that's posted to the Capital Improvements Committee page on the town website. And that committee is very hard at work and continuing to make improvements for what will be the updated this year's capital program, which will look similar, but will be different in some of the details. So that's a really important process because while that informs each recommendation in each given budget year on what capital projects to fund, it also gives a really good blueprint of the next 10 or more years of all of the various capital needs and interests that the town has. So there's a lot to absorb in that. And it's a great document if you're interested in really digging into kind of what makes the town work in terms of infrastructure, vehicles, buildings, and so forth. So one thing the Capital Committee will be doing, in addition to evaluating specific project proposals, is evaluating whether we're putting the right amount of funding into the stabilization fund each year to ensure that as those future needs come online, that we have the funds that we'll need to pay for those needs. In the next budget year or at the upcoming town meeting, the selectmen anticipate putting forward a proposal to fully fund our share of the reconstruction of the Middle Street Bridge. That bridge is currently in the design phase. We got a $1 million grant just about a year ago through the MassWorks program, and that built on progress that had been made through a small bridge grant that the city of Newburyport got a couple of years ago, which was $500,000. So we've been very fortunate to get $1.5 million of state assistance toward this project, but there is going to be a balance that's going to need to be paid locally. So we've worked with the city of Newburyport, and last summer completed a memorandum of agreement, which provides that the city and the town would equally split the remaining costs. So at this point, we expect the remaining cost to be about 1.1 million. So that would leave about half of that for the town of West Newbury. So we've penciled that in for the last couple of years, and we would expect to propose to fund that $600,000 in the upcoming year out of a combination of free cash and stabilization funds. That $600,000 wouldn't all be spent in the next year. It's, once the project goes out to bid, it'll take longer to build it. But in order to sign the contract, to get the contractors underway, you have to have all of the funds appropriated. So that's going to be a big vote that the town meeting voters can expect to be presented with next spring. One thing that we do every year in the budget process, we're subject as a municipality, as municipal government, we're subject to various mandates from other layers of government, state and federal. And each year there tend to be new requirements. So in my budget direction to department heads, I always request that they specify if any of their budgetary needs are being driven by new government mandates. It's important to know that so we can know what's driving those expenses. So that'll continue to be a part of the budget process. Obviously, COVID-19 is a huge component that's affecting us all. And up to this point, thankfully, we've been able to fund just about all of the incremental costs associated with COVID-19 out of federal coronavirus relief funds, and as well as FEMA funds that we're continuing to go through the process with both of those programs to get reimbursed for our expenses. But there is no assurance at this point that there will be further coronavirus relief funds after the first of the year, meaning January 1st. So um, in looking ahead to FY22, the year starting next July 1st, we'll be asking the department heads to, based on assumptions of where we might be with COVID-19 at that point, whether we expect that to be a continuing impact on operating budgets, and if so, to specify that in the budget proposals. And one other piece of the Selectmen's policy direction was to continue to expand consideration of potential opportunities for regional collaboration, insofar as any regional provision of service may be able to provide at least equal, if not greater level of service while realizing cost savings. So some of those considerations may not play out in the upcoming budget cycle. Some things, it takes some time for things to work out the details, but we, the selectmen in my office, want to make sure that we continue to focus on those potential opportunities that could save the taxpayers money without compromising the level of service. So that's the policy direction that's going to inform the upcoming budget process, which we're have now formally kicked off. And so you can expect with the meetings beginning in January and into the late winter and early spring, just as it is every year, budget will be a major consideration. So it's a great opportunity, as I said, to both advocate your point of view in terms of what you think your local tax dollars ought to be focused on, as well as to dig into the details and learn more about where your tax dollars go, and then share your opinion of whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. So that's what I've got, and appreciate everyone who tunes in for this, and we're always happy to answer questions or respond to concerns, and we've got a great staff, we've got great people, very responsive, and so would definitely encourage people to get involved, stay involved, both through the public boards, commissions, and committees, as well as directly with departments and staff. And I'll say once again, I hope everybody is enjoying the holiday season, and we all have a lot to be thankful for. So wish you the very best as we look to what we all hope and expect will be a far brighter new year than the one that's coming to a close. Thank you very much.